Right. So the next section we're going to talk about is what I call the 21st century curriculum battles. We're going to talk about several different battles right now for the control of modern battles. We've been talking a lot about what's happening in the last century, with the struggles against the Eurocentric history from radical historians and Black History Month and things like that. But there are current battles right now happening. They're playing out, and state standards, and state boards of educations and through, federal, legislators that are happening right now and playing out in our curriculum. And we're going to talk a little bit about this throughout our presentation. The first one I'm going to talk about is textbooks and how textbooks are written and how the curriculum is developed in this country. And we have to understand textbooks are a for-profit industry. So they're not, they're looking to make profit off of this, and they're also looking not to go bankrupt as well. So they have to kind of cater to the largest buyers of textbooks, and those happen to be the states that adopt textbooks at state levels. So 19 states throughout this country, mainly throughout the South, adopts their state adopt textbooks for all schools in their state, and the other states, you may have more localized jurisdictions like county board of educations that they may adopt textbooks or different curriculum boards and things like that. So it may be a variety of different things, but when it comes at state level, it's a lot of power, particularly around big states, and probably the one that has the most power in this country is Texas, because Texas is one of the leaders, and has a huge population of people, a huge school age population, and probably is probably I believe that the biggest buyers of textbooks, the single biggest buyer of textbooks, because Texas is one of the states that adopts their has a state board of education, and they adopt their textbooks, or at least they adopt the curriculum they want. And oftentimes textbook companies who want to sell to Texas and make that huge sale will modify their curriculum and their book to the state standards of that state. So it gives an enormous amount of power, from this like very small state in Texas State Board of Education. Actually, we're going to watch a video in a second about them. It's just a small group of people that are locally, that are elected, that are oftentimes are very political. In the past decade, there's been a lot of like Tea Party influence and things like that. So it can be very political. But what they decide is their standards on, like, should we teach about Gandhi? Should we teach about Rosa Parks? Should we teach about these things? They're deciding the standard that in turn all these textbooks that makes textbooks across the country are looking to get their looking to sell their textbooks to Texas. So they're going to, adopt their textbooks in their curriculum and their textbooks, and what they highlight and don't highlight based on Texas standards. So it's an enormous amount of power that is being wielded by this one state. And we're going to look at the actual Texas, education board, and it's going to be scary. This has an effect, a lot of these textbooks, because Texas wants to perpetuate different like lost cause myths. This can have an effect on this country, and this country believing in lost cause myths. Right now, like 48%. This is a Pew Research study, found 48% of Americans believe states' rights were the main cause of civil war, and only 38% believe slavery was the main cause. I mean, that's a lost cause myth that may have started in the South, but because of like large institutions like Texas that adopted these lost cause myths, it's now perpetuating this myth across the country through for-profit textbook companies. And to give you a little, just a little example of, the Texas School Board, rewriting history for our entire country is, Texas, again, what we're saying is it's one of the largest school book text purchasers. About 1 in 10 American public school students live in Texas, so it's a huge business. So textbook companies want this, beyond any, this can make or break your company. And then they have so they have a Texas State Board of Education who votes on curriculum, and a lot of people, oftentimes they're elected, but they're often very politically conservative, Christian evangelicals, Tea Partiers, creationists, and you just look at some of the past, just in the past decade, some of the standards that they pushed, like they referring, to slaves, enslaved people as workers, categorizing the Atlantic slave trade under patterns of immigration, downplays the role of slavery, removes Ku Klux Klan and Jim Crow laws from the civil rights sections, suggests some segregated schools are pretty equal for Black and white children, negatively portraying Muslims, even suggests space aliens would love to come to America to take advantage of affirmative action. That is like an actual thing they wanted in their textbooks, ridiculous as it sounds. Downplaying evolution, stating Moses played a role in writing this Constitution, claiming the Constitution does not include the word separation of police state. So you can see, I mean, there's all different, these are narratives that are being pushed right now, that many that are false narratives. But because they're being pushed by the largest buyer of textbooks, this oftentimes, these narratives are being pushed across the country. All right, so for the next slide, I wanted to play a video because of the new copyrights and protections in YouTube. I can't insert this video. It's from the Comedy Central's old school daily show, Jon Stewart. I can't insert it into my PowerPoint and then upload it back to YouTube, which is fine. I definitely respect the copyright protections. You'll just need to go to either Google the name, the top name, and it'll take you straight to it, or just Daily Show. Don't mess with textbooks, or one of these links will take you straight to that if you want to type them in. But definitely check it out. It's a short video. It's like 5 minutes long. The first minute you can probably skip. It's just like Jon Stewart doing his usual jokes. But it's a great it's a great 4-minute clip on just how the Texas State Board of Education works, and how that because they approve curriculum at a state level, and because the state buys more books than anyone else. This small group of Texas State Board of Education folks wield an enormous amount of power over curriculum over the entire country. So definitely check this out. Pause this clip, check the video out, and then just come right back and unpause it. But this isn't just Texas as well. There are also any kind of large like I said, it was 19 states. I think it was 19 that buy at the state level. And any one of those they wield an enormous amount of power over textbook industries, including this another example in Colorado in 2015. The Colorado School Board had the conservatives on actually, this wasn't the state school board. This was a localized school board, but it was like the second largest school district in Colorado, the Jefferson County School Board. So again, what they decide the curriculum is probably going to get some kind of textbook person to modify their curriculum somewhat, because they're such a large purchaser of textbooks. So they had a very conservative school board at the time that was really worried about all the things we've been talking about today, the critical race theory, things like that, anti-racism, ethnic studies, and they wrote they put together a curriculum committee, and that with a mission to basically find materials should promote citizenship, patriotism, essentials and benefits of the free enterprise system, respect for authority, and respect for individual rights. So they wanted to basically remove any part of our history that didn't have respect for authority, and didn't have wasn't super pro-capitalistic, or wasn't, which is a lot of our history. So they made some really drastic recommendations. I can't remember the whole story. You can read this. It's just a short story. They passed a lot of really horrible curriculum changes, but I think a lot of it got overturned, and they had to fight for different things. But ultimately, they made some drastic changes in their state, in their curriculum. And now those curriculum standards, they're going to, they're not going to buy books that don't represent these changes in the curriculum. So you can see, I mean, there was like all different kinds of protests There was all these walkouts and student protests, I mean, because the students recognized that they were being, indoctrinated by this conservative committee. That they wanted to understand the truth. They wanted to understand the realities of the histories of this country. Students typically do, like, they don't want to be lied to, even if it's for our own good, for whitewashing, so we're all super happy with this country, but they don't want that. And you can see was massive protests, and it was a pretty, sorry, I'm not remembering it all, but you can definitely Google this, but it was a pretty, passionate fight, towards the end. But this is another example. It's not just Texas. This is happening in large school districts, all in state and large state school districts, in local school districts across the country. And then another particular vicious battle around ethnic studies in Arizona occurred in 2010. So in Arizona in 1998 created the Mexican American Studies Department. And what they found is particularly around Latinx students, there was these high, there was low graduation rates and high dropout rates in certain districts. So they implemented this program that basically taught Mexican American history, and it wasn't in replace of American history or white history. It was just a supplement. And what they found is that really it did a lot of good for a lot of Latinx students, a lot of Mexican American students, and it found that it significantly, not just gradually, significantly raised graduation rates, and significantly decreased dropout rates among Latinx students, and it was deemed overall a very positive program. I mean, it gave kids the right framework to understand the society that we're living in and how to succeed in that society, and that they did have self-worth, even if there was institutions trying to bring them down. So it was a powerful program that really did really well. But there was a but then a problem was there were some Arizona lawmakers, particularly Republican lawmakers, that did not like this program at all. And I'll show you the video in a second of some of the things that they didn't like, and they were definitely challenged in some pretty harsh ways as well. But they ultimately thought that these schools were teaching these Latinx people to be anti-American, to hate our country, and to want to start a revolution. So they banned schools. They passed this bill in 2010, the Arizona House Bill 2281, that basically said schools were banned from teaching anything that intended for any given ethnic group. Teaching, they couldn't teach anything that went against another ethnic group, or advocate for overthrowing the government, or encourage ethnic solidarity as opposed to individuality. So they had a whole list of things that were banned: critical race theory, 500 years of Chicano history, and pedagogy of the oppressed. Really, important books, but it has a huge list of books they considered to be anti-white, anti-European, just because they're being critical. That's the thing. It's like being critical of something, and all of a sudden you're anti-white by being critical of whiteness in this country. So they banned all these things, and then ultimately, I mean, it was a struggle. There was a lot of legal challenges, and ultimately, a federal judge, and 7 years later, decided this bill violated the students' First and 14th Amendments rights by eliminating, and they were, and the judge stated that the officials were motivated by racial animus and were pushing discriminatory ends in order to make political gains. So it's basically saying that these Republicans were themselves motivated by racism and were themselves pushing this indoctrination for their own political gains, is what the federal judge ultimately came to. And they ultimately brought back some of the programs from my understanding, but it's a lot of it just never came back. I don't know if they lost momentum or lost funding or things, but after that 7-year hiatus, I think they're still working on bringing some of the things, programs back. But I want to play this video. Kind of goes a little bit deeper into this situation. Oh.
Ethnic studies programs have become an uncontroversial fixture of school curriculums across America. But in Tucson, one such program has been a political flashpoint for years. pitting Mexican American students against conservative lawmakers. A federal court ruling expected in the next few days will decide whether an Arizona law banning that program is unconstitutional. Tucson's Mexican American Studies program was founded in 1998 and made Mexican American literature and history classes part of the core curriculum as a way to improve student engagement in a district that's over 60% Hispanic.
We asked the students to be critical. We looked at Mayan, Aztec history, and we shared with students some of the alternative perspectives.
At its height, 1 in 5 Tucson students in participating schools was taking an MAS course, and they saw a significant boost in standardized test scores.
We saw people that weren't the typical A-plus student and that were just like really engaged in this class.
Many conservatives, though, saw the program as a Trojan horse, designed to allow radical teachers to smuggle anti-American, anti-white sentiments into the state schools.
What I'm criticizing is a program in high schools that I believe is openly racist.
One of the leading forces against the program was a state senator named John Huppenthal. The catalyst for his crusade was a visit he made to an MAS classroom in 2010, where he talked to students about the anxieties many white Arizonans felt.
I'll be straightforward with you. There's this feeling of threat by a lot of people that their cultural traditions that they felt resulted in the most prosperous, free nation in the world. They feel under threat, that those cultural traditions are at risk of being washed away.
Personally, I don't feel disassociated from this country just because of my ethnicity.
If you write an essay on people that are historically oppressed, and he'll say like, okay, you understand what these people are going through, you understand what the concept is, now how can we change it?
You know, I started thinking, I'm a Chicana, I ain't gonna be able to graduate, I'm gonna have kids young, like that. And then I started coming to these classes and I started seeing like, why am I believing all this? Instead of believing it, I should change it.
I just had a really great philosophical problem with that whole construct that they were using. That this oppressor framework has some kind of foundation in reality and that it's useful. I think it's totally worthless. I think it's less than worthless. I think it's toxic.
So amidst growing anti-immigrant sentiment, legislators passed a bill to kill the program. The law prohibits courses that promote resentment toward a race or class, are designed for a particular ethnic group, or advocate ethnic solidarity instead of individuality. Huppenthal became superintendent of Arizona's schools soon after, running on a campaign to, quote, stop La Raza, and he wasted no time shutting the program down.
Our education's under attack! What do we do? How do I tell my kids that the institution of education respects them for who they are if it doesn't even teach them about who they are?
Teachers and students immediately sued the state, charging the law was discriminatory. And now, after years of working its way through the courts, a decision is finally due. But the law has already had a lasting impact. While ethnic studies programs are expanding across the nation, Tucson schools have been left paralyzed.
There's misinformation out there that you can't teach anything to do with Mexican American culture because of the ban on our program, which is just an absolute falsehood. But teachers think that's true, districts think that's true, and it becomes this like unwritten policy, and that's scary.
A decision in favor of the program could change that, but some Tucsonans have.
All right. So as I said, in 2017 they did overturn this, but like I said, the program, or the old program, has yet to come back and how it used to be, since it was started in 1998. And the last thing I want to talk about is Prager University. It's not a real university. It's this right-wing conservative propaganda format that was created by a conservative radio talk show host, Dennis Prager, and its producer, Alan Estrin. But I normally I probably wouldn't even talk about this, but the fact that I've just been reading nonstop articles about how more and more schools are thinking that this is a university or accredited institution, and are thinking that or just either agreeing with what they're saying, and this is becoming more curriculum for more and more curriculum and homework assignments. There was reading recently about the school in Ohio that was basically the teacher was assigning them, you know, homework assignments to watch these videos. And if you go on their website, it's basically there's like thousands of videos. Some of them are not apolitical or just like how to do this, how to do that, but a lot of them are like straight up like right-wing propaganda, like the war on Christmas, you know, build the wall, why the, you know, right was right and why the left ruins everything, literally why the left ruins everything, the Ferguson lie, there is no gender wage gap, is Islam a religion of peace, you know. So it's like all these things, like this is literally like the picture of one of the videos is why you should be a nationalist. We're in the middle of a crisis of white nationalism, and this country is being blown up, and they're literally writing this like, you know, happy smiley face. So anyway, I mean, it has these like, you know, people from Dinesh to Souza, you know, to Alan Dershowitz to Adam Carolla to Kansas Owens, just these people that are just like, you know, they just make a living off of pushing this propaganda. Yeah, it's super important. I just wanted to do a quick slide on this, in case like if your students ever come home with, you know, homework assignments to be on PragerU, or you ever catch it. It's important to understand this is not accredited institution, but at the same time, there are a lot of teachers that are starting to incorporate this into their curriculum. So it's something to kind of reach. You know, they claim in 2018 they have over 1 billion views, and they have this new program, you know, since COVID hit called Prager, you know, Prep program, which is like developing and working with teachers to do more on, you know, videos for online, you know, tele education and stuff. So it's something to just to be aware of.